I felt like I was drowning. That's really the best way to describe my experience of life for many years. I grew up in an alcoholic home, and I think to simply say that it was a broken home is also very fitting because all of us in it were really just so broken. And you may remember that last week, Pastor Keith talked about how an alcoholic home can resemble a storm at sea. And really, as you may have experienced, or as you can imagine, you know, the family members in that kind of home are really tossed about by the waves of conflict and fighting and shifting moods and just the unpredictable atmosphere. And in the midst of that turmoil and brokenness, we learn how to cope. We learn how to look like we're not broken. We learn how to master the facade of holding all the broken pieces together to look like we're not broken, just hoping that friends and family won't notice that we feel like we're drowning, like we feel very alone. And as we attempt to just keep our head above water with the outside world, we begin to keep secrets. We wear masks. We pretend that we're not fighting. We cover up the symptoms of our brokenness instead of getting help. It's really a very lonely way to be a family because in all of the places where we should feel safe to be broken and wounded and ask for help, instead we are just ashamed of our imperfection, and so we pretend. And by pretending, we lose ourselves. We lose touch with who we are and who God created us to be. When we don't know who we are, we usually look for our worth and our identity outside of ourselves in places that always leave us feeling empty. We may look for our worth or our identity in accomplishments or in our talent or our appearance. And, you know, those things end up feeling like anchors tied to our soul that weigh us down, and they cover up our true free self that God really created us to be. And that was my experience. And when I tried to find my self-worth, my talent, and my accomplishments, and in the approval of other people, I tied my soul to these anchors. And then as my successes failed, I felt like I was a failure. And failure felt like death. And in a way it was, because all of the false selves that I had created to kind of cover up my brokenness, they were all dying. So I wrote this next song in the midst of this dying when I felt like I was drowning. When you're actually physically drowning, you know that the water around you isn't you, and you know instinctively to let go of anything heavy that's pulling you down. So this song is about letting go. It's about turning my face upward away from the troubled waters that were surrounding me, and instead choosing to focus on the only one that could really heal my soul and set me free.
Feel like oceans surround me. Emotions so bittersweet, cold and losing shelter me. You shelter me. Oh Lord, when I need some shelter, you shelter me.
Well, that's how we do church at Springcreek. All right, well, you may have noticed that I got on a little bit of a roll there with my storm theme in my lyric writing, and that's just because that's how my life felt for so many years, like I was being just battered by the wind and the waves of life. And I would be willing to bet that there's a few of you in here today that feel like you're living in a storm. And maybe you feel like everything around you is breaking, and if just one more thing were to break, that you might break too. And if you've ever been in a season like that, or if you find yourself in a season like that right now, I want you to know that you are not alone. You are in good company. I had quite a long season like that, and it was in that time that I wrote that last song, Shelter Me. I wrote the lyrics actually many years ago when I was in college, and I hadn't done any healing yet from my broken home. And so when I moved from Massachusetts here to attend Dallas Baptist University, I brought all of my dysfunction with me. I brought all of my coping mechanisms. I brought all of my banged up ways of relating with people. And before I knew it, I had recreated many of the same rocky dynamics from home in my new life. For example, at home, I had developed this perfectionism thing. Like maybe if I'm perfect, there will be less fighting. Maybe if I'm perfect, I won't be criticized. Maybe if I can control my surroundings in things as everyday and simple as compulsively cleaning, maybe I'll feel like I have more control in my life, where otherwise things feel very out of control, like they often do in an alcoholic home or in a very broken home. So I brought this very high-strung, perfectionistic, excessively type A way of being and thinking and relating into my college experience. So you can imagine I was a super fun roommate to live with. Sounds like a blast, right? My sweet roommate from California, she was so chill and just low-key, and she just wanted to come in after a long day of class and kick off her Birkenstocks in the middle of the room and flop down on my bed and eat her Doritos and study. And you might be wondering, why was she eating her Doritos on my bed? All right, let me remind you of the college experience, if it's been a few years for you. How many of you guys have done the dorm room thing? Or maybe like a very small apartment or something with a roommate. It's like they give you this 8x8 prison cell with your new cellmate, like your new best friend for life, right? And so you have to really get inventive to make it work in the really small space. So what we did is we stacked our beds. I don't think they were made for that. like at all. And so from a structural engineering standpoint, I don't think that it was really sound or anything. But spoiler alert, I survived. But we had to get really, really inventive to make it work in this small space. So my bed was on the bottom, and it kind of served as a couch. So it was agreed upon, right? Like we would just flop down there and study and whatnot. And so it was fine until one day I came home, and I found what appeared to be on my white bedspread, because that's what high-strung people should have, white stuff. I don't know. But I found what appeared to be a cheesy Dorito fingerprint. I think we might even have, yes, Exhibit A. Now, for you guys that watch CSI like I do, so the legal experts among us, we know this is not even a full fingerprint. This is what we call a partial print, right? Like it's not even enough to convict the perpetrator of this crime in any court of law. But you know, half of a cheesy Dorito print, right? I'm so high-strung that I come home and I like lose my mind. I just come unglued. And I think we might even have a picture, yes, of me just right. That's right before the meltdown. Those eyebrows are actually looking pretty good. But yeah, that's just pre-meltdown right there. And you know, looking back, I can see that my high-strung way of being really was not called for, was not necessary in my new life. In fact, I really had a great opportunity to start over with my very chill, very kind, very sweet roommate. But I was repeating, because that's what we do, right? Like when we haven't yet learned from our past, when we haven't brought our brokenness into the light to be healed, we repeat. We will recreate what feels familiar to us. So even though I changed my location and I changed my circumstances, I was still living in the storm. It might be more accurate to say that the storm was still living in me. That's just one example and kind of a silly one. But the truth is that I was putting a lot of that perfectionistic pressure on myself all over the place in life. So in my grades, I was a total crazy person trying to get a 4.0. When I would sing in front of people, it was never good enough. I always felt not good enough. I got myself really into this downward spiral of anxiety, and it started to manifest itself in even physical ways. And so, like migraines, chronic migraines that would land me in the emergency room. I even started blacking out pretty frequently, and I completely passed out a couple of times. So I had internalized so much emotional pain and so much stress that it was manifesting in all these physical ways, but obviously in my relationships as well. And so I remember writing that song, Shelter Me, as a prayer, just asking God to shelter me from the storms of my life. You know, and I didn't even want him necessarily to miraculously reach down and scoop me up out of my circumstances. I just wanted to know that he was with me in the storm. And I bet there are some of you guys here that you just really want to know that he's with you in your storm. And the Bible says that he will cover you in the shadow of his wings. And I have to tell you that that was my experience. When I felt like everything around me was breaking, when I felt like I was breaking, he was with me in the storm, and he was my shelter. One of the storms that persisted through those college years and really all the way up until like 5 years ago when I was getting to know you guys here at Springcreek is the addiction and the brokenness in my family. My dad had been struggling with alcoholism for decades, and sadly we just didn't have any information about addiction or alcoholism, and so we didn't have really much compassion for his experience. And it really breaks my heart to think about that now because, like I said before, it's really lonely to feel like you're so broken inside, but like you have to pretend that you're whole, to pretend like you're fine. And I can see now, looking back, that just like I was in pain, just like I felt like I was drowning, like I was living in a storm, that's how my dad was feeling in his addiction, really alone. And you'll hear in Alcoholics Anonymous sometimes people will use the phrase terminally unique, like nobody understands my pain, and it's very lonely. And so it's exhausting, right, to always have to pretend with people. And so instead, he isolated himself and he medicated his pain, and so the storm continued.
I think we're alone now. I think we're alone now. I think we're alone now. There doesn't seem to be anyone around. I think we're alone now. The beating of our hearts is the only sound. Children behave. That's what they say when we're together. Watch how you play. Don't understand that, so we're running just as fast as we can, holding on to one another's hands, trying to get away into the night. Then you put your arms around me and we tumble to the ground and you say, I think we're alone now. There doesn't seem to be anyone around. I think we're alone now. The beating of our hearts is the only sound.
You know, I came from a good conservative Christian background, went to a Christian college, was accepted at seminary, went to seminary, and then was accepted at the University of Texas at Austin in the doctoral program, and that's when the drinking started. Doctoral candidates, and I felt they drank, and so I thought, well, it can't be so bad. That was it. You know, the one drink immediately for me just led to others. This is the period when the marital problems started. In '87, her mother took her to Massachusetts to live with her parents. In '89, I went up there because my wife said, you know, this is not good to have Heidi not have her father. Wasn't going to be able to keep going on the doctorate. I just, you know, I had to withdraw. Between then and 2000, that there was a lot of drinking, but it was hidden. The alcoholic always thinks that he's one step ahead of everybody else, and so even though the alcohol is on your breath, your eyes are, watery and dilated, and your words are slurred, and you still think you're hiding it. I thought, you know, well, I'll drink, and then I'll go get something to eat, and then by the time I get home, I'll be able to fake it. There was a lot of guilt. I kept determining, you know, to stop, I loved my wife, I loved my daughter, but the alcohol was just all-consuming. Now, Heidi, she was aware that there was all of this tension and fighting, and it was always in front of Heidi. She began to think that somehow this was her fault and she had to fix it. My wife decided in 2000, we separated. I moved down to Texas and immediately got arrested for DWI. And spent a couple nights in jail, and that sobered me up for about a year. And then started the drinking again. From 2005 to 2007 was another period of sobriety. Probably late 2007, I started drinking again. 2009, it got bad. Heidi asked me to go into a rehab, Grapevine Valley Hope. That was a great experience. They told me about alcoholism. They gave me tools to battle the disease. Willpower just isn't going to do it. I was introduced to AA, the 12 steps. I met my second wife. And so that was one of the reasons for the period of sobriety. January of 2013, I started drinking again, even to the point of drinking on the job. I had to drive a lot for my job, and so I would just drink in the car. The job put stress on, and stress, because I wasn't doing any recovery activities, wasn't associated with the church. And I started drinking, and in March, I went into rehab again. Was there for 2 weeks and, refreshed my memory on the tools and the recovery and the 12 steps, and it came out and I was okay for a little bit, and then I started drinking intermittently. It kind of all came to a climax. Heidi's got a song, Trouble, and it was based on her watching me go down this road. And it says that I'm always chasing trouble, trouble always chasing me. And I always felt like a victim, because I had several surgeries, and I had car accidents, and there were layoffs of jobs, and there were problems in the marriage, and there were financial problems, and so it always seemed to be, if I wasn't actively pursuing trouble in drinking, it always seemed that I could turn around and see this hound of hell pursuing me. So that song really depicts the life of an addict, an alcoholic.
I may never get all my money back. I may never get all my money back, baby. You know I spent it all over this town. If you keep me from trouble this once, hey Lord, I'll be thanking you when I lay my head back down. me by the hand, lead me like a little child. My eyes are so blind. I'm lost on my own, prone to wander when I'm left alone. Your light leads me
it kind of all came to a climax. My wife and the church elders, talked to me and said, this just can't continue. And so in September, that was the end of the drinking. And I've been sober ever since. Reconnect with my family and reconnect with Heidi, because she had, during this time just had kind of her fill of the dysfunctional end of all of these things, and trying to feel like she had to fix it, and of course she couldn't. It was my problem.
So I remember going into my dad's rehab and just meeting all of his friends there and thinking, wow, they've gotten to know this amazing, hilarious, endearing person that I really haven't gotten to experience because of just the illness of alcohol. We've both gotten well, we've both grown so much, and it's amazing. I mean, our relationship today is just probably more incredible than it ever would have been if we hadn't gone through all of the things that we've been through. And so I'm really happy and proud to say that today I know that person that all of those people were getting to know in rehab. That's so funny. And we've gotten to go on a cruise together last year. We went to the Caribbean, and we have so many funny pictures from that and just laughed our faces off. And really every time we get together for lunch or for holidays or anything like that, I mean, we just spend most of the time cracking ourselves up and cracking each other up, laughing.
Yeah, being sober is just, that is living. What I was experiencing was just a living death. So now I get to have my daughter back and just get to have my life back, which is really terrific.
God is good, yeah? All right, so we have a very special guest with us today. Would you please welcome and celebrate my dad this morning? A standing ovation. You're stealing my thunder, but I will allow it. All right.
My name is Craig Roberts, and I'm an alcoholic in recovery. And I just want to say that I'm really proud of Heidi. I want to thank you all for coming and supporting her. And I just want to say that God never gives up. God never gives up on us, no matter how far we go. He's always willing to step in and take us back and heal. So, just want you to know, don't ever forget that.
Man, I could have never imagined a couple of years ago going from the brokenness that we were in to today, standing here together telling you our story of recovery. And it's so special to share it with you because even just the moment of standing here together on stage and sharing it with you it's like the miracle is still unfolding. The redemptive story is still unfolding. And, you know, I wanted to celebrate God's goodness with you this morning because in community, that's what we do, right? We celebrate each other's miracles like they were our own. And you guys did a great job celebrating our miracle. Thank you so much. But, you know, the hope, too, is that gives us, when we do that, it gives us courage to say yes to God where we need healing. Maybe in some places that we've started to lose hope because we see what's possible, you know? And I also wanted to celebrate what he brought to this room today. Vulnerability, authenticity, to share about his journey, and not only about just the healing part, but really about the brokenness part too. And that takes a lot of courage. And so you guys did a really great job celebrating with us. Thank you so much. You know, when the world is telling us that we need to be perfect and we feel tempted to keep our carefully constructed social media image together, you know, looking like we have it all together, we need to remember that Jesus never asks us to be perfect. He just asks us to be in progress. He just asks us to be growing. And really the truth of the spiritual life and when supernatural transformation like this can happen is when we are courageous enough to be vulnerable in the safety of loving community, like we're doing today. And so I think it's also really important to acknowledge that really miraculous reconciliation like this can only happen when both people are willing to get well. And it wasn't long after my dad started his journey of recovery that I had to kind of look at myself and make the choice to get well also. See, as I sat in the family sessions in the rehab center just down the road in Grapevine, Texas, I realized that I was just as broken and banged up as he was, and that I really needed my own healing. Because while he was on that roller coaster he described of addiction and recovery and relapsing, I was on a roller coaster emotionally. If he was okay, I was okay. If he was a mess, I was a mess. And that is really a terrible way to live. But like I said before, when we don't know any better, we repeat what's familiar. So not only was I in this really codependent, enmeshed relationship with him, I was recreating that dynamic in my life all over the place. I was a people pleaser, still a raging perfectionist. I was trying to fix and rescue people. I was giving unsolicited advice, you know, just all over the place. And I really lost myself focusing on everyone and everything outside of myself. And I think that's kind of a coping mechanism to maybe feel like I had some control in a life that felt really out of control. And so, you know, I had this moment where I just really looked at myself and I realized that there is a common denominator in all of my misery and all of my dysfunctional relationships, and that common denominator had pink hair, and it was me. And so that was a very humbling realization, but a really powerful one. And it was in that moment of realization that I wrote this next song, and it's called Heaven Help Me. Well, one of the pieces of wisdom that I have gained on this journey is knowing that we gain this wisdom that we never would have had if we had not been first broken and then restored. Unlike when we try to hold all the pieces together to look like we're not broken, God takes all the pieces and he creates something more beautiful, like a mosaic or stained glass. A colorful pane of glass is really beautiful just by itself, but when the broken pieces have been crafted together, they become a masterpiece. And just like that, our lives and our stories become a masterpiece in God's hands that really tell a story of redemption. So on the other side of being willing to turn to God in our storms, to let go of all of those false self things that weigh us down like anchors, after we've walked through the valley of grieving our own shortcomings and we realize that we want to get well too, we gain this wisdom of knowing who we are and who God is. He's the redeemer of every painful circumstance. He's our healer. He's our light in our darkest places. And as we learn to embrace all of the lessons that there are to be learned in our pain, God is so kind to instill more and more wisdom into us. It actually becomes integrated into who we are. And I love how wisdom is described in the Bible. In Proverbs, wisdom is described as a woman. So ladies, feel free. You're probably going to want to hallelujah and amen and stuff as the Spirit moves you. Guys, you should maybe just listen up. Metaphorically, in Proverbs, wisdom is described as a woman. She's beautiful. She's precious. She's to be valued above all else. We're told that if we seek her and if we embrace her and cherish her, that she'll be our companion through all seasons of life. She'll protect us and she'll bless us all of our days. This song is called Wisdom.
Around, she'll bless you all of your days. I said, if you keep her around, she'll bless you all of your days. If you hold her when you're young now, she'll stay with you when you're wanting grace. I've been looking for her all over this town. Well, I've been looking on every street for her, in every window downtown. Well, she can't be bought or sold. She don't find you just because you're old. So come on over here now. bless you all your days.
Thank you. So I think one of the most valuable pieces of wisdom that I have gained on this journey of recovery is knowing that healing and growth really happen best in community. You heard that that was my dad's experience, and it's been mine as well. My first baby step was to be my very broken self in the very safe space of a counselor's office. And then in a 12-step group for codependents, and then with a small group of ladies that we would meet together and do the hard work of the 12 steps together. And it's been years, and I still meet with that group of ladies today. We just meet for dinner, and we do life together. It's just such a safe place to come together and be our broken selves. We can share our struggles, we can share our anxiety, or if we're stuck in unforgiveness, or whatever it may be, you know? And in healthy community, we don't have to have all the answers. We don't have to be able to fix each other. We can just be there to walk through life together. And I think it's just as important to say that we also celebrate each other's victories. You know, we celebrate each other's promotions and opportunities. And so it's this great balance of being there for each other in the difficult times, but also in the really great times as well. So today we have painted quite a picture of how harmful and toxic isolation can be, and how depression and anxiety and insecurity and all of that just really grows in the dark. And to the same extent, life and light happens in community. God really has this way of meeting us through each other and bringing us healing through each other. And then beyond that, once we receive healing, we begin thriving. Like what you guys are witnessing right now is your pink-haired friend thriving in this community. These songs were written in community. This weekend was created in community. My story and my dad's story was able to be told in such a beautiful way because so many people came alongside me and they said, "Your story matters. How can I help?" So wherever you are on the spectrum, if you're feeling really broken right now, or if you've received some healing but you're still feeling kind of banged up, or if you are just thriving in life, we need you, and you need community. It's been my experience here at Springcreek that I have just been blessed so much by you all as a church family, probably more than I'll ever really be able to express. Ryan and I were really banged up when we got here 5 years ago, and you guys have provided a place for us to really just heal and grow and even thrive. So when Pastor Keith and I were talking about this weekend, it was really obvious that community was this foundational theme through my recovery story. And so it's been really meaningful to me to get to share with you first, share this project with you, share my songs and my story and my book and all of it, just to get to share it with you guys first, because you've been such a big part of my journey. And so I just want to say thank you very sincerely for being so safe and so loving and just such kind, encouraging people, and creating a space really for me to just heal and grow and even thrive. So thank you so much for letting me share with you today. Thank you.